Iran constructed its army underground, literally, not figuratively. Iranian military planners spent 20 years witnessing American air power destroy everything that remains above ground, and they decided that the best course of action was to go where the bombs cannot reach. As a result, hundreds of kilometers of tunnels carved into mountains, buried beneath deserts, reinforced with concrete, stocked with missiles, fuel, ammunition, and command infrastructure, as well as the entire logistics backbone of the IRGC's military power, were moved underground. The solution lay in the tunnels. The tunnels are ablaze. Iran's deepest, longest, and most vital tunnel networks have been breached by Israeli and American strikes, the same enormous ordnance penetrators from the GBU-57, the B-2 Spirit's 30,000-pound bunker busters, which were used to demolish Iran's hardened nuclear facilities, discovered the ventilation shafts, tunnel entrances, and structural weak points that weapons engineers created penetrating munitions to target after years of intelligence gathering. There are 250,000 Iranian soldiers inside the flaming tunnels. 250,000. That isn't a unit, an army, that is. Because Iran's tunnel network was supposed to be the solution to American air power, 250,000 IRGC and regular Iranian military personnel were stationed there. Today, they are trapped in burning infrastructure with compromised ventilation, blocked exits, and the unique horror of an underground military facility that has lost its structural integrity due to persistent bunker-busting strikes. 250,000 soldiers are trapped. Allow me to explain the true nature of Iran's tunnel network, because destroying it is more than just a tactical move. In response to American military supremacy, Iran spent a generation developing a strategic architecture which was destroyed. Iranian military officers refer to their tunnel program as the underground city of missiles. There isn't just one tunnel. Beneath the Zagros Mountains, beneath the central Iranian desert plateaus, and beneath the Gulf approach's coastal topography, there's a huge, interconnected, purposefully redundant system of fortified underground facilities dispersed throughout Iranian territory. The network was created using the particular lesson learned during the Gulf War of 1991 as a guide. In 100 hours, the American Air Force annihilated Iraq's military from above. As military strategists, Iran observed that and chose a single strategic choice. When America arrives, we won't be above ground. They went underground. They went underground for decades. They constructed missile storage facilities that are resistant to near-miss attacks by conventional weapons. They constructed command nodes that were buried deep enough to be inaccessible to penetrating weaponry of the previous generation. They constructed underground medical facilities, maintenance facilities, munition storage, and fuel depots. They developed the ability to withstand prolonged American air campaign pressure while conducting military operations from inside mountains. Iran's ultimate insurance policy was the network of tunnels. It was meant to be Iran's last line of defense against bombing. It's burning. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator uses a hardened steel penetrating body to deliver 30,000 pounds of kinetic energy that punches through rock and concrete before the warhead explodes. In the past, penetrating weapons stopped around 20 to 30 meters of concrete. The GBU-57 can pierce 40 meters of moderately hard rock or 60 meters of concrete. It was created especially to access Iran's deepest buried facilities, which were thought to be inaccessible. They were reached by America. Furthermore, a tunnel breached by a GBU-57 sustains more than just damage. It's a trap for death. The integrity of the tunnel is jeopardized along its entire length due to the structural fracture. Everything that comes into contact with the pressure wave created by the explosion inside the tunnel is destroyed as it traverses the whole length of the building. The ventilation system's intended supply of oxygen is consumed by the fire that develops after the explosion. The penetrating strikes on the surface infrastructure that supplies the ventilation system have now jeopardized the system itself. 250,000 soldiers within a network of flaming tunnels with poor ventilation and restricted exits. For Iran, the military ramifications are disastrous. However, the strategic ramifications extend beyond the number of casualties. The network of tunnels served as Iran's safeguard and reserve. The military capability that was anticipated to be accessible following the initial round of U.S. airstrikes. When the air campaign reached its operational limit and the second phase of Iranian military operations started, the capacity would emerge from underground. The subterranean missiles served as the reload capacity for all 35 of the operation's waves. American strikes had already weakened the command nodes on the surface, and the underground command infrastructure served as a backup. When the surface forces were crushed, the underground troops were meant to remain intact, well supplied, and prepared. It's all on fire. The Fatah, Imad, Khyber, and Qatar that have been flying in 35 waves, as well as the missile campaign's reload capability, are currently blazing underground. The backup infrastructure for the command nodes that coordinated the simultaneous attacks on Ras Laffan and Ras Tanura, Jufair and Victoria Base, Ali al Salem, and the THAAD radars across 3 nations is on fire. Trapped in flaming tunnels are the 250,000 soldiers who made up Iran's shielded ground force reserve. This force was meant to withstand the air campaign and provide Iran with military depth into the second and third months of the fight. In a single operational sequence, Iran recently lost its insurance policy. Observe now how this affects the missile campaign. Wave 35 is currently in the air. The Fatah is in the air. The EMOD is moving in the direction of Tel Aviv. The CDER is on its way to U.S. bases. All of that is actual moving and demonstrates Iranian attack capability that was able to stay above ground long enough to be loaded and launched. Wave 36, what about it? Iran's wave after wave campaign strategy was made possible by the missiles for Wave 36, the strategic reload, and the weapons and reinforced underground storage that were meant to be an endless supply. These weapons are currently underground in blazing tunnels and buildings whose structural integrity has been damaged by GBU-57 hits that penetrate to a depth Iran's engineers determined no weapon could. The subsurface reserve was necessary for Iranian missile operations based on the wave after wave hypothesis. The reserve is on fire. Iran's strategic patience is calculated. The 35 missile firing waves were meant to last until the political will of the United States crumbled. These calculations were predicated on an underground logistics story that would allow the campaign to continue indefinitely. The story of logistics is on fire. Iran is aware that the 35 waves may be nearing the last waves. This campaign has been conducted by the IRGC with the premise that time is on its side. That before American military superiority could be fully utilized, the combined cost of Ras Laffan and Ras Tanura, the 67 dead, the destroyed Victoria base, the closed strait, the broken NATO alliance, the withdrawals from sovereign wealth funds, and the oil above 130 would tip the political scales. Iran had to outlast American will according to the belief, enduring the necessary prolonged missile fire. The subsurface store was necessary for prolonged missile fire. The subterranean reserve is on fire. The basis of Iran's winning theory has just been demolished. Now consider the 250,000 soldiers who are stranded and comprehend the implications of their predicament beyond the immediate disaster. As a survivability measure, the tunnel network served as the foundation for the IRGC's ground force doctrine. The troops go underground. The air campaign comes to an end. The troops appear, start the second phase. There was more to the tunnel network than storage. It was Iran's plan for maintaining its ground forces. How to maintain the lives of 250,000 soldiers during the most aggressive American air campaign in history. The soldiers are underground. They were discovered underground by the air campaign. The tunnels are on fire. At its most fundamental goal, the IRGC's ground force doctrine has failed to sustain the force. The strategic patience of creating an army beneath mountains, the decades of tunnel construction, the billions of dollars spent going underground, and the ingenuity that was meant to make Iran's military unbombable have all been beaten by weapons that were especially made to defeat it. The appropriate instrument was brought by the Americans. For now, the GBU-57 is in existence. For just this purpose, it was conceived, funded, tested, and supplied to B-2 Spirit bombers, the reinforced subterranean bunker in a nation that the U.S. has been preparing to attack for 20 years. Through decades of satellite monitoring, signals intelligence, and human intelligence operations within Iran, the information that revealed the tunnel network's weak points, entrances, ventilation, and structural weaknesses, was gathered. This morning over Iran, the weapon, the intelligence, and the aircraft that transported them joined together against subterranean military infrastructure. Additionally, the infrastructure is on fire. Observe the outcome of Wave 36. Over the next 48 hours, observe how the Iranian military's operational tempo changes. Keep an eye on the IRGC's ability to maintain the coordination, logistics, and command structure that resulted in 35 consecutive organized operational waves of strategic missile fire against a deteriorated communications infrastructure, while 250,000 troops were trapped underground and the reload capacity was burning. The math shows the answer to that watch. Iran possessed the strategic depth to manage the protracted conflict that their theory of victory demanded: a shielded reserve, a sustained reload capacity, and a ground force saved for Phase 2, prior to the tunnel strikes. Following the tunnel strikes, Iran is fighting with what is above ground, what was launched before the tunnels burnt, and what survived the surface air campaign. The reload is no longer available. The reserve is stuck. The Phase 2 force is not coming out of the ground to start fighting. It is awaiting the extinguishment of the fires. The fires are taking a long time to go out. This is the landing of the 82nd Airborne. Wave 35 is currently in the air. The tunnels are on fire. Iran developed an underground military for 20 years in order to withstand American air power. To get there, America built the weapon for 20 years. The solution to the tunnels is the GBU-57. The solution to the air campaign is the network of tunnels. For a decade, the US-Iranian military rivalry has been characterized by a series of strategic moves and countermoves. It reached its conclusion this morning with 250,000 troops unable to flee and burning subterranean infrastructure. The longest tunnels in Iran are on fire. The insurance policy is on fire. The reload is on fire. The Phase 2 force is confined. American air power is still in the air above ground. The 82nd is still making landings. When Iran developed its ideology of victory, Wave 35 was the final wave it anticipated. The topic is Wave 36, and the tunnels that were meant to provide the solution are on fire.